Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your weekly astrology forecast for the week of April 27th to May 3rd of 2025. Now before we get into the charts for this week, I have some updates on like readings and things. So I did some price adjustments and adjusted a whole bunch of stuff. So basically for me, the cost for whether it's a card reading, an astrology reading, or any of that is basically $50 per half hour. So I've also added on live readings as well, so you can book a time for me, whether it's live one-on-one, like online. I do it through a Google Meet video conference, okay? So you can book that, and I don't offer a recording, but you are free to do a screen recording if you wish of the session to keep it for yourself, all right? And so the live readings are available through my Ko-Fi shop. They're not on the Etsy store because Etsy doesn't allow things like that. They have strict rules for a lot of things. So, but the pre-recorded astrology readings are still there. So if you want a recorded reading, like I do the reading, I record it and I send you the video, that is still available there. There's a 15-minute card reading like that available there. That's only $25. What else is there? On my Ko-Fi as well, I do offer distance Reiki healing. I am a Reiki healer, so I do that as well. So that is there if you want something like that, as well as, of course, like the astrology and stuff. For the live readings, though, just read the description in the Ko-Fi shop, because you just have to go to my Google Calendar to book the time and then continue payment through Ko-Fi. All right, just because I had to work it that way for the booking thing, because you have to be able to book when I'm available, and I don't need, rather than just having people email me and say, hey, when can you do this? It's just, here's the times that I am, and then you can do it that way. All right. And I believe that's it. Oh, there is the memberships as well on Ko-Fi. There is the lowest tier $1 membership, and then the next tier is a $3 membership. So, and all of this is in Canadian dollars. So if you're American, this is hella cheaper for you, okay? But yeah, so lowest tier is $1, and that gets you basically pre-release of all of my, the main astrology YouTube video. I can't do the daily card reading shorts because they have to be scheduled, and it doesn't work that way. I wish I could, but I can't do it that way. So it's just the astrology videos, or any major, like bigger videos, like long form videos that I do. You get to see those before everybody else on YouTube. And the $3 tier basically includes weekly live streams. So it'll be about 2 hours every Wednesday around 2 p.m. You can ask me questions about your chart, astrology, card reading, whatever, okay? It's for, whoever's in that tier to talk to me, hang out, chat, that kind of stuff, to go further into what I talk about in these videos, etc. All right, so I just wanted to update everyone on that those are the offerings. And again, I think for the memberships, it's actually extremely cheap. So that's a pretty good deal. And for the readings and stuff, I think that's fairly fair as well, because a lot of other like astrologers offered, they want you to pay more even for like an hour-long reading. So yeah, so I think that's pretty good. And I do have the half-hour option of the recorded one on Etsy as well, if you can't afford the 1 hour live one-on-one. So there's a bunch of options for other people. All the links are in the description below. If you are on TikTok, just go to my link tree that is in my bio, and everything is listed there. All right, you can do that if you're on YouTube too, but there's more links in the YouTube description. So, all right, and again, if you want to join the Discord, the link is in the description below, and all that kind of stuff. All the links are there. All right, readings, everything. So yeah, just wanted to update everyone with that. With all that being said, though, we can get into the charts for this week. Now, again, as I always say, I get stuff through intuitively through these readings. My guidance has been, and likely always will be, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things. Meaning that, okay, we still have free will. So if I were to talk about maybe the specifics of some kind of event that's going to happen, it's always subject to change because we have free will. However, the energetic template is still there. So things are still likely to happen and exist within the energetic archetypes that are occurring now, right? The universe is infinitely creative. It can do things in certain ways, blah, blah, blah. That's why divine timing is a thing, all of that kind of stuff, all right? Okay, so with all that being said here, let's jump into the chart now. Let me just switch over on my end, and there we go. So we're going to start here on Sunday. I wanted to say October for a minute. Sunday, April 27th. I don't know why October was in my head. Maybe that's meaningful for something. or someone. Anyway, I got the idea of like Scorpio season for some reason, and maybe we'll touch on that a bit. I think there's a lot changing and well, let's get into this new moon in Taurus, and then we'll jump into that, all right? So on Sunday here is when we are going to have this new moon in Taurus at 7 degrees. Okay, I got some stuff kind of coming through just prior to me starting this recording, so we're going to kind of jump into this now. First off, I do want to say that this new moon in Taurus is now closing out the eclipse season. All right, you might say, well, Mark, the eclipses were like a month ago, blah, 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 blah. Well, yes. However, the start of that last lunar month was a new moon in Aries, and that was that solar eclipse, right? So that eclipse season was technically still there. That energy is still there. And I'm being reminded again that we still have planets in like post-shadow that were retrograde during this time. So that energy, some of that energy of that eclipse is still going to be a bit valid. However, it's mostly over. And we're just beginning to, with this Taurus energy, ground a lot of that new change and stuff in during this Taurus season. All right? So with that being said, like the end of that eclipse season now, we're moving forward. I mean, we kind of have already, but we're moving forward. We're grounding in a lot of the changes and stuff, like I already said. However, if we have a look at this new moon here, we can see that it's in square to Mars. It's in square to Pluto, so there's a T-square happening here, but there's also this opposition to Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. So there's actually a grand cross occurring here with this, I guess, intense kind of transformational aspect, because we're dealing with Pluto and we're dealing with Black Moon Lilith here in Scorpio. All right. And with Taurus here, I'm hearing again, grounding in the new, grounding in that change, the transformation that is occurring here. And with this Mars energy, remember, Mars is still in post-shadow. I believe next week, Mars finally leaves shadow. But again, this is kind of like that rebirth of that divine masculine within all of us, and also the rebirth of that identity is what I was being guided to again, as Mars rules Aries. So again, that relates to this Venus retrograde, where Venus will come back into Aries this week. All right, Mercury is already back there, now left shadow. Okay, and those retrogrades, we're dealing with a lot of that Aries energy, individuality, sovereignty, etc., all of that kind of stuff. And so that's all kind of still relating to this in terms of this new expression of that, right? Mars and Leo, that expression of that is that Mars relates to that Aries energy with those retrogrades and all of that kind of thing. This new moon in Taurus can also relate to this value and worth, our own value and our own self-worth in terms of our individuality, our sense of identity, our sovereignty, our uniqueness. With Pluto in Aquarius, okay, that uniqueness, individuality, transforming that, putting power to that, bringing that to the surface in that way. All right, so there's a lot of this grounding in, a lot of seeing our own value, worth. This could be relating to money in some sense as well, yes, in terms of how our world functions, even if we don't want it to function that way. That's how it functions, but this is also relating to our own value and our own worth. Yes, that can be monetarily. However, really our own value and own worth doesn't really have any relation to money at all. All right, our own worth is far more than that of what any money can buy, okay? Money is just some made-up thing. It does not fully relate to who we are as people, all right? So, and again, with this opposition to Black Moon Lilith, especially in Scorpio, this is dealing a lot with transforming where we've been outcasted. And again, I feel like I'm being drawn to this fact that we're dealing with this our own value and worth. All right, and it's been where we've been shoved away, but we're healing that. We're kind of grounding in this new identity, this new value and worth, this new masculine energy that expresses more from the heart. Now, remember, we all have both divine masculine and divine feminine energy within all of us. All right, that's regardless of our sex, gender expression, sexual orientation, etc. Okay, that is all still valid, of course, but we have both that divine masculine, divine feminine energy within all of us. Okay, and this kind of like the rebirth of that, but also more so leaning to this rebirth of this aspect of ourself, our identity, etc. Within that. So this could be a very intense transformational period, including leading up to this as well. Check out my astrology video I did last week regarding that, although if you're watching this, it's released the day before of this new moon, so maybe you still want to watch it. But, you know, you're getting this like pretty close to when it happens, okay? But yeah, so there could be an intensity here, even just alone with this T-square, let alone this opposition to Black Moon Lilith, creating this grand cross or grand square that will exist within this. So just kind of be mindful of that, because both Black Moon Lilith and Pluto are at 3 degrees, like they're in a fairly close square with each other here. So there's this intense transformation, and what I'm getting is this is dealing with our uniqueness and how, like, you could say almost like our weirdness, but our uniqueness and how we fit into the collective in that way, but also how we've been previously been outcast that is now being brought to the surface and now transformed in some way. As this relates to our own value, our own worth, and as this previously stuff that has been brought up through this past eclipse season, through these past, especially Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, that started in Aries here, and with this Mars retrograde relating to this Aries energy, dealing with that masculine vibe, etc. This has already been happening for such a long period of time, and now we're grounding in, we're really beginning to transform these changes. Another thing that they're letting me know here is the stubbornness of Taurus regarding this value and worth. It's like, I know my fucking value and worth. I don't give a shit what you're telling me here. I'm not going to feel outcasted by this anymore. Okay, it's that aspect of that's coming through with this vibe as well. And this can be a very intense, very strong, like I said, transformational vibe. You have to remember, this is a fixed grand square. Okay, so when we're dealing with fixed energy, a fixed grand square, it can feel like very much like we're forced to step outside of our comfort zone into something new, right? When we're dealing with fixated energy, it's very stubborn energy. But another thing that I'm getting here is we're moving into maybe fixating in a new space, right? So it is change, but there's been a slow build up to this, and I think we're ready for whatever this is, even if it feels uncomfortable. I'm being drawn again to this aspect of South Node Virgo, North Node in Pisces here, meaning what we thought and deemed was practical isn't going to be practical anymore. And we're mostly what they're drawing me to here is this North Node in Pisces and heading into the unknown. We're into this space. We're heading into an unknown space that is basically veiled. A lot of it maybe we don't know, don't understand. But with this, I feel like with this Taurus energy, it's like we don't give a fuck anymore. That's kind of what the vibe that is coming through. We don't give a fuck anymore. I know my value and worth. If this new space allows me to represent that and be that and heal all that old bullshit, then fuck it, let's go, right? Let's just fuck it, fuck it, we ball, fuck it, let's go, like, let's do this thing, okay? And with that fixed transformation, it's a very strong push, and it could feel hard for some people that are not wanting to let go of the old. However, I don't think you're really going to have much of a choice anymore. All right, because there's higher energies at work here that are really trying to push and shift things. Okay, and it's like, no, we're meant to go to that higher direction, that higher vibe, and that's where we're going and that's where we're headed. And a lot of that old stuff that people are so strong to cling on to, it was never really for our best interest anyway. Okay, and that needs to be let go of. So with this strong T-square transformation and this kind of stuff that's occurring here, it can seem difficult or almost like a crisis point, but in the long run, it's not going to be a bad thing. Okay, like it can feel like that. And I think what they're kind of giving me here is like, it can feel like that for those that are not wanting to let go. But once they do let go, they'll realize that it wasn't so bad to let go, if that makes any sense. But for those of us that are kind of ready for this change, we're like, yeah, fucking let's go. Okay, it's like, we don't care anymore, let's go, we're ready for this. Let's bring in this new stuff, ground in this new vibe. All right, so that's kind of the vibe of this new moon in Taurus here on Sunday. And again, I'm being told this may draw out into Monday as well, because Sunday obviously happens on a weekend in our world, and for some people in the world, this might actually be on Monday, okay? Due to the time zones and all that crap. But for those of us where this is happening on Sunday, like in the Americas, that it'll still probably bleed into Monday, or we'll see the effects like into Monday, because that's the start of the actual week and blah, 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 okay? Excuse me. Okay, so maybe pay attention to that. All right. So we're also on this day going to have Mercury in semi-square here to Uranus and Taurus. Okay, what I'm getting initially from this is this relating to our value and worth regarding that aspect of uniqueness, our weirdness per se, and where we fit into the collective as Uranus rules Aquarius here. And of course, Mercury is in the sign of Aries. And of course, this is bringing maybe an awareness to the mind and seeing that Mercury is no longer in shadow anymore. It is now moving full steam ahead. All right. In Aries, so we're full bore now out of this retrograde or this post-shadow retrograde vibe. So basically what we've learned, what we've gone over, all of that stuff is now, shall we say, beginning to move forward in a lot of ways. We're not going over it anymore. We're starting in this new space, at least when it comes to maybe our mind, awareness, communication, etc. Venus will come back, like I said, into Aries this week, and we're still going to deal with a lot of that Venus shadow stuff. However, that will begin to start wrapping up as well, because I believe in a couple weeks Venus will also leave shadow as well. So I think it's Mars leaves shadow next week and then Venus the following week. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on that, but it's around those times that's going to happen. Okay, so then those kind of retrogrades are done. But then we're not fully out of the retrogrades because then Pluto's going to go retrograde. Okay, so they're kind of dealing with this bit of back and forth kind of stuff, but at least that energy will have shifted and we're maybe a bit more online, kind of into a new space. All right, but that's what this kind of feels like, is maybe a more of awareness or communication of awareness surrounding our own value and worth in terms of our own uniqueness, individuality, etc. with our Mercury semi-square Uranus. Okay, so that's Sunday. Pretty big day to start the week. Let's move on here to Monday the 28th. Of course, Monday the 28th here, we're going to have this Mercury in sesqui-square to Juno retrograde here in Scorpio. Okay, what I'm getting here is it's relating to what I talked about previously with this Mercury in semi-square to Uranus. However, it's dealing with this individuality. I'm hearing the word sovereignty in terms of whatever these contracts are. So Juno here rules, like, whether that's business contracts, any kind of partnership or contract, even like maybe even soul contracts or like marriages or like business contracts, things like that. When retrograde, this is a re-review of that, okay? In Scorpio, it's a transformation. So it's a transformation, an intense one, all right, of having a look and maybe even a deep look at what these contracts are or were, etc. And this could be stuff that has come up recently, as this is a retrograde, so going over maybe more recent types of things. But it could also be just older contracts and stuff coming up as well for a relook and intensifying those to transform them, bring them maybe to our awareness in a sense as well. But with this sesqui-square here, it's strongly pushing for that resolution. Okay, it's like a super square. It's a square and a half. All right, it's pushing for that resolution, something that can't be swept under the rug any longer, surrounding these contracts, partnerships, etc., and bringing an awareness to that, surrounding aspects of individuality, sovereignty, value, worth, uniqueness, etc., as Mercury is still in that semi-square to Uranus too there. Right, so a lot of that is coming up for transformation, reworking, etc., and it could feel very intense throughout this time. Okay, we are also here going to have Saturn in trine to Juno retrograde in Scorpio there. Okay, so Saturn still with a conjunction to Venus there. Like I said, that could be setting appropriate boundaries with others, as well as the dissolution of that restriction within relationships, etc. Whether maybe somebody is restricting you in some way, either taking advantage or something like that. So it can kind of go both ways, but that can also deal with relating to this aspect of boundaries as well. But with Saturn in Pisces, like I've said, it's the dissolution of that malefic energy. So whether that's setting a boundary or dissolving where we've been restricted in terms of our relationships, as it maybe relates to our individuality, etc. Within that, okay, as that's still the vibe that's happening here. And remember, Venus retrograde started in Aries. All right, so that aspect of individuality, and like I said before, that could deal with our aspect of our own individuality as exists within a relationship, honoring that, but also honoring that within the other as well. All right. Let's have a look here. Where am I? Right, the trine. I need to pay attention. So with this trine, so it feels like there's a release of maybe restriction, or maybe there's a setting of boundaries here as well. But this is a positive shift in terms of whatever those contractual partnerships, all of that kind of stuff is there with that, with the reworking, the intensifying of that, etc. So what I'm feeling like that with that Scorpio energy, there could be like a smashing of those old maybe contracts or restrictions or commitments, etc., with this transformation of whatever these contracts or agreements or partnerships were, and now it's kind of being dissolved or changed up or reworked in some way in that sense as well. And this can very well involve other people. What I'm getting is this can relate a lot to maybe what's going on like politically, economically, etc. in our world. But it's like there's a reworking or a kind of breaking free of this in some way here as well. This Saturn conjunct Venus here is still in that sextile to Uranus and Taurus. So this is relating to value and worth, likely in things surrounding money as well. Probably regarding what is being shattered here in terms of boundaries being set, what is being changed in terms of contracts, blah, 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 etc. So that's still kind of happening in that energy as well too. All right, so that's for Monday the 28th. Let's move on to Tuesday here, the 29th. And according to my list here, there's nothing really major going on. So let's move on to the 30th here. All right, so on the 30th here, we've got a couple things going on. We're going to have this Venus here coming back into Aries. So now Venus still in post shadow, coming back into Aries. Again, it's with this post shadow vibe, it's still this looking at, like I said, this aspect of our individual self in terms of relationships, understanding and honoring our own sovereignty, our own individuality within relationships or around other people, but also honoring their sovereignty, so pay attention to this, their sovereignty and individuality as well. Okay, excuse me, oh my God. So usually when I burp like that, and what happens is the guide's wanting us to pay attention to that. Okay, so it's honoring not only our own sovereignty, but other sovereignty as well, and learning to accept that. I'm also being drawn to the Aquarian vibe here, Pluto and Aquarius, that kind of stuff. Surrounding, we're all unique, but we still fit into the collective. Okay, we can't all be the same. We each have something unique to bring to the table, and we need to honor that on an individual basis and not try to fit someone in some stupid fucking box or try to manipulate people regarding relationships, etc. Right? Like if you're in a relationship with someone, honor their individuality and allow them to honor yours. Okay, you don't have to be the same. You don't have to be the same person or to have all these things in common to be friends with someone or even to be in a romantic relationship with someone. Some people like it when the other person is different from them, right? And like it doesn't have to be the same all the time, because if it was same all the time, it would be boring. Okay, it's like that saying, variety is the spice of life, right? Diversity is part of that too. Our diversity is important because we all have something unique to bring to the table, and we can all work together in that sense as well. It's an aspect of this Venus retrograde with this Taurus energy of value and worth, and this Aquarian energy, uniqueness, individuality, how we all fit in, like all of this kind of stuff is playing a role here. So with Venus completing her post shadow here, where she went retrograde initially in Aries, surrounding the aspects of identity, self, etc. This could deal with masculine, feminine energy as well in terms of this Mars stuff, surrounding Mars still in post shadow, but going to be leaving that shadow energy as well, with that balance between masculine and feminine. And yeah, I don't remember exactly where I was going with that, but I feel like it's because Venus was in Mars's sign, Mars had gone retrograde, etc. There's this dealing with the honoring. Okay, I think what I'm getting is it's honoring the individuality in terms of this new masculine vibe that has come online, or is coming online. All right. And honoring the individual, and also what they're saying is kind of honoring the feminine aspect as well from a more heart-centered space instead of the previous fucked up bullshit that we've had to deal with before. All right, and this is of course happening at a higher level, so we may not, in terms of maybe the masculine treating the feminine better, we may not fully see this Well, we may. I think for a lot of people, we may see that stuff kind of come out. But like I said, this is existing and happening at a higher level, spiritually a lot for us as well. So we may see this begin to more so unfold. Like it's already happened and it'll begin to unfold over time because things tend to take a lot longer to shift in physicality than they do from a higher realm. Okay, we're also going to have this Pluto here in Aquarius in square to this black moon Lilith here in Scorpio. So remember I talked about this regarding that grand square surrounding this new moon in Taurus, and this is when it peaks here is on Wednesday. This energy is very highlighted this week. Like I said, I feel like this is relating to our uniqueness, our weirdness, that kind of stuff, and where we've maybe been outcast in that way, where that's intensely being highlighted, but also to be transformed and healed. Okay, Black Moon Lilith in this space in Scorpio, transformed and healed in that way. This can also deal as well as Scorpio deals with sex and sexuality, Aquarius uniqueness and stuff like that. We could deal with LGBTQ topics, that kind of stuff, maybe coming to a head in some way, or there may be a vibe of that coming up in terms of being transformed in that way, or understanding our own value and worth and not giving a fuck what governments and other things are doing or happening in this world, like that stuff going on. It's like, I know my value and worth even though, you know, I'm gay or trans, bi, whatever you are. And even that's not just that specific. I'm bringing it to that vibe just because it kind of relates to this energy, like I said, with Scorpio, sex, sexuality, where am I going with this? Aquarius dealing with like uniqueness, or maybe what was considered, you know, it's like everyone used to probably some people still do consider, you know, heterosexuality what's like normal, and Aquarius is like what's out, you know, stepping outside of that into your own uniqueness, when it's like we're all unique in our own ways, whether it deals with sexuality or whether it deals with unique interests or hobbies or just our personalities or any of that stuff. We're all unique in some way, right? And we need to learn to honor and respect that. In whatever that is, and understand that we all have something to bring to the table, all right? And that is an aspect of true unconditional love. If we are all fractals of source on a soul level, meaning we're all basically pieces of God incarnate, well, that uniqueness is then from source, and we're all unique for a reason, right? So in terms of that, a lot of what we've been taught and manipulated and made to believe has just been straight up wrong. Okay, and we need to honor our own hearts, we need to honor our own individuality, etc. We've been manipulated previously in that way negatively for a reason, basically in order to enslave us in a lot of ways, because if we honor our uniqueness, individuality, etc., if we bring all that to the table, we then become extremely powerful together, because each part then works together as part of the whole. It's almost like the one became separate and is coming back to one through its own expression of individual uniqueness in a lot of ways, and that can really help to bring us together. If we learn to love each other for our uniqueness, then that brings us all together, and we're more powerful together than we are apart in a lot of ways. But we also need to learn to respect our own individuality within that as well, and honor that as it relates to our uniqueness and or what we want to call our weirdness, etc. So there's still that freedom and sovereignty that has to exist within all of that as well. Okay, and so with this Pluto square again to Black Moon Lilith, this is helping to heal and transform and bring to the surface maybe where we've been outcast in that way, but ultimately to heal and transform a lot of this stuff. Like I said, bring it to the surface, to heal it and transform it, that we've kind of been dealing with there, and understanding our own value and worth. Remember, we're dealing a lot with fixed energies here, so this could feel intense, this could feel like people could have a hard time letting go of certain things, but it's something that kind of needs to happen. It can feel like a crisis. It can really feel like a crisis, but it's something that really strongly needs to shift and change. But ultimately, we're really healing this because it's like fixating in that new vibe as well. All right, so that is Wednesday the 30th. Let's move on to Thursday, May 1st here as we head into the new month. We're going to have Mercury here in quintile to Pluto here. So again, we're dealing with maybe more of a behind the scenes. I'm feeling it's more of like in our minds or within in a lot of ways with this quintile regarding our own individuality, worth, our own awareness of that is kind of what I'm feeling with the Mercury there, in terms of that Pluto intensifying that in that Aquarian energy. Of course, they're still in square here with Black Moon Lilith, so maybe there's an awareness coming through here surrounding aspects of uniqueness, individuality, sovereignty, freedom, etc. within that, and transforming, healing, and honoring and expressing that through an individual perspective, and bringing that more so into our own awareness in a lot of ways too there. All right, we're also going to have the Sun here is going to be in a semi-square to the North Node and in sesqui-square to the South Node. So okay. With this Taurus, I feel like this is a lot of times more, okay, hold on. Well, this is what I'm getting. Taurus vibe is we're still grounding in the new here, all right? We're still grounding in the new. And with this sesqui-square to the South Node, we're letting go of what we've thought was practical. There's something that needs to be really pushed, released, and let go of here in terms of a practical sense. With this sesqui-square to the South Node, and with this semi-square to the North Node, really pushing to move in a new direction, even if it's unknown, even if we don't necessarily see where the fuck it's going or what's going on or what's happening. It's like, we just got to go there, right? And I'm being guided again and reminded to, with this fixed T-square, this fixed energy regarding that new moon that I had talked about, again, with that heading into the unknown, like we've talked about before when that was happening, or when I talked about at the beginning of this video when that will be happening, with that fixed energy, it could feel like that crisis point, or feel like we're stepping outside of our comfort zone or whatever, or feel like, because that fixed energy wants to stay fixated, but then it's pushing for like that change and transformation, or we're pushing for that shift, and it can feel like we're heading into the unknown. But it's like, yeah, we are, but we need to do it. It's like that big push into that space. That vibe is coming up here again as well, with this sesqui-square and the semi-square to the nodal axis. All right, so I feel like, again, this is grounding in this new, and with this sesqui-square, I feel like it's a very strong push for whatever needs to be let go of in a practical sense, that is just no longer serving us any longer. What we thought was practical, that's no longer serving us, as we begin to kind of push and shift into this new direction that may be unknown, but it's like, we got to do it, right? Trust. It's having like this aspect of trust and faith, and just do it. Even if it's scary, just go there, because it's almost like we don't have a choice anymore in a lot of ways, right? Also, on this day, we're going to have Uranus here sextile the North Node and into trine to the South Node. So there is an aspect of change that is surrounding this, big changes. So I'm being drawn to the fact of this, dealing with this fixed energy again of being in Taurus, but Uranus also rules the fixed sign of Aquarius. So dealing with these aspects of, I'm feeling that this type of, that this energy now is dealing with this grounding in of these aspects of change. All right, is that's the overall vibe here still. Previously, I've said, Uranus and Taurus is like those big shifts and changes. And yeah, it still is. But now it's like this grounding in because of all the other energies that have previously happened and now are happening through these cycles, and how this is now being used to maybe ground this in a way, and with these positive aspects now to the moon's nodes here. Okay, so there's that release of what was practical to move forward into the new. So there's this aspect of change and still grounding in this aspect of change that is occurring here as it deals with our own value, worth, uniqueness, individuality, all of that kind of stuff, freedom, sovereignty, etc., etc. Okay, so that's Thursday the 1st. Let's move on to Friday the 2nd here. We're going to have this Venus now conjunct Neptune in Aries. So what I'm kind of getting here is like, it's something that is new. All right, so what I talked about in terms of, and there could be a dissolution that's happening here. So, okay. When I say something that is new, Aries is a cardinal sign. Neptune rules Pisces, which is a mutable sign. So endings and beginnings. There's a dissolution and then a new beginning, okay? So there's this malleable aspect and moving forward, this aspect of change. All right, and how it deals with aspects of our relationships, but the individuality our own individual self as it exists within the relationship, and then respecting the individuality of the other person as well. This can go with like one-on-one types of relationships. It can also go to groups, cities, countries, worlds, planets, etc. Like it can scale, like this energy, pay attention to that. Like this energy can scale, okay, is kind of the vibe of this, okay? But it's dealing with this aspect of the new. It's maybe more, there's an aspect of like softening to love here, as Neptune rules Pisces, that aspect of compassion in Aries, in terms of that independence, that fiery energy. There's still a passion there, but it's coming from maybe more of a heart-centered space instead of maybe like an angry aspect space, right? There's an aspect of that softening to love, but there's a newness here in terms of respecting the uniqueness and individuality regarding not only ourselves, but the other as well. I hope that makes sense in terms of what's coming through. Sometimes it's hard to articulate some of the stuff that I'm getting here, but that's what that vibe, I feel that vibe is in terms of our relationships, etc. But it feels like there's a very strong energy, because we're dealing with Neptunian Pisces as well as Venus. There's a very strong feminine energy surrounding this, which is why I kind of feel like that aspect of like softening to love that is coming through here. But it's something that is new. Like it feels new in regards to relationships or kind of partnership stuff, that kind of thing, right? There's still a wide like out of sign trine here too to this Juno retrograde in Scorpio too. So it could be relating to whatever transformations and things that are occurring surrounding those partnerships, contracts, etc. All right, that's Friday the 2nd. Let's move on to Saturday, May 3rd here. On Saturday, May 3rd, we're going to have the Sun here in semi-square to Saturn. Okay, so what I'm kind of getting is Saturn, this dissolution of this malefic energy in Pisces, and of course with the Sun in Taurus, the grounding in the new. So what this kind of feels like as well is there's an aspect of boundaries here, because we are dealing with Saturn, but they're more compassionate boundaries as it likely relates to, you know, standing up for oneself as well as standing up for other people in a sense as well, with that maybe Venus conjunct Neptune in Aries, with that aspect of more compassionate love, with that Aries energy in terms of maybe fighting for what's right. So it's coming from more of a heart-centered space. But it's also the dissolution of that malefic energy, the dissolving of the old structures. Basically what I'm getting is it becomes malleable. So we're setting boundaries in more appropriate ways maybe, and those structures where we've been restricted becomes more malleable and changes. So it's like, you know, you can't restrict me in this way because now I'm setting this boundary. You've restricted me, so now I'm restricting you. Okay, that's kind of maybe what that kind of vibe is. It's like that standing up, but maybe in a more positive, compassionate kind of a way. In respecting and standing up not only for ourselves, but for other people. It also feels like I said, it was grounding in the new, whether it be standing up regarding our own value and worth is one thing that really strongly coming up here with that Sun in Taurus in that, I wanted to say square, but it's a semi-square, but it's still going to feel like that vibe to Saturn and setting maybe those compassionate like boundaries, etc. But it's also like the dissolution of that malefic energy through setting of those boundaries. And this is very strong feminine energy as well, and kind of also like saying no. Like it's like the feminine being like, you can't fuck with me anymore. I'm done with this shit. You know, I'm standing up to this now kind of thing. All right. And the dissolution of that malefic energy like through that as well. Okay. So that's kind of the vibe of that. We're also going to have Mars here. What am I looking at? I'm looking at two different things here. Mars here in semi-square to Jupiter. Okay, so there could be an expansion of this expression of this aspect. Okay, so what I'm getting is it relates to what I said before. At this expression in terms of maybe standing up for someone, whether it's expansion of communication through that, or expansion of awareness, bringing awareness to that kind of thing, in terms of maybe standing up for each other in a more compassionate way and honoring the individuality of the other person as well as ourselves. And through that vibe, it's still kind of carrying on that similar aspect of what I was talking about, but this is in Leo, the strong expression of that coming from the heart, that coming into the spotlight, that kind of a vibe, and with that expansion of that through awareness, communication, etc., as that's coming through here. All right, I think that is all that I have for this week. If you have made it far, if I can talk, if you've made it this far in the video, please leave a purple heart in the comments so I know you've made it this far and that you're a real one. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Please let me know in the comments, what you thought of this video, how you're dealing with these energies and all this stuff going on through this past while and through all this craziness. Yeah, so all this craziness, yeah, for sure, definitely, right? So yeah, anyways, I will end it here. So I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye.